Okay, hi, and welcome to the Part a Day project. So this is the part we're going to make today, and we see that a couple things that we're told that we're going to be using metric dimensions, and we have a fairly straightforward base, and we have this section here and the circle is going to be tangent to both this surface and the downward surface. We're going to assume that this hole goes all the way through and that these two slots, well, this one is seeing that we can go all the way through. This one in the isometric view, we can't see that it goes all the way through the part, but we'll make that assumption. All right, so let's go ahead here and we will go ahead and jump into this part. And again, there's many different ways to make the part. We can either, but typically we would either make the base or we would make the back wall. Either way works. I'm going to go ahead and start with the back wall. So let me go ahead and open up Solidworks here. I need to change my units to millimeter gram second. And let me shrink myself down here so we can see what we're doing. And so we're going to sketch this, and this is going to be on the right face because, again, this is the front face that we're looking at over here. So this is the front direction, and this is going to be the right direction. So I'm going to go ahead and create a sketch. I'll make my sketch on the right plane. Now we have a 120-degree dimension here that gives me the full width, and the total height here is not expressly given, but we're given that the height of this circle is 55. So that's what we're going to locate. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a line that goes from here over, and I'm just going to drop that there, and I'll make that dimension 120 millimeters. Okay, so now I know that there's going to be a circle up here, so let me go ahead and locate that circle. And the dimensions for that one is that the height of the circle is 55 millimeters up, and we have it over 95 from this side. So we'll go here, and again, depending on which way you pull this dimension, you get different value. You get different orientations, either vertical or horizontal or in a line dimension. All right, so let me get rid of that little window there. So we're told that the outside diameter of this circle is 0.5 or 50 rather, and the inner diameter is 20. So let's just drop another circle here, and we can dimension these. So this one is going to be 50, and this one's going to be 20. And we're not going to utilize all these sketches right away, but because we can reutilize sketches, we might as well put them in at this point right now. And once we do this, we'll see that this line over here is actually going to come right up and snap to that quadrant. And then we need to come over, but we're not going to go all the way down. We have to come up the distance of the height here, which is 10 millimeters. So let me come up a little bit. I don't really care how far I'm coming up right now. And then I'm going to drag my line over, and if I'm careful, I can drag, and there, if you see it, is my coincident and my tangent constraint. So I want to put both those on there. So now my dimension is 10 millimeters. So let me go ahead and put that in, and this should lock everything down. But it doesn't. So what's going on here? Well, let's take a look at this line. If I drag the line, nothing happens. What happens if I try to drag it up and down? Well, I thought I got my coincident there, but I didn't. So let's go back and drag it back there again. And now I have my coincident. All right, so now what's the thickness of this wall? Well, the thickness is 15 millimeters. So I'm going to do that first, and then we're going to have to extrude the main circle out to be 25, and then we're going to have to cut out this circle. We can do all this with the existing sketch. So let's go ahead and go to Features, Extruded Boss, and it's going to ask me to select what contours I want. So I'm just going to select the circle contour. That's going to extrude the entire circle, and I'm just going to select in here to get the main part. The extrude distance here will be 15 millimeters. And that gives me my basic part that I'm going to work with. Now, to get these other features in here, I'm going to open up the Boss Extrude, now I'm not right clicking, I'm just selecting the sketch to make it active. And now I'm going to go back to my extruded boss, and it basically the sketch is now active again. So I'm just going to select this circle here, and now I'm going to extrude it out a distance of 25. So now I have that aspect of it, and now I'm going to do it one more time. I'll go to the sketch, but this time I'm going to do an extruded cut, and this time I'm just going to select the inner piece. Sometimes you might have a problem grabbing it, so you can grab it from the back, but I want to extrude it as a cut, so I'm going to flip the direction. In this case, I'm going to make it go through all. All right, so we got that. Basically, our back wall is done. Notice on this diagram, you don't see this edge because in a typical sketch drawing in isometric view, you wouldn't see this as being a tangent edge. Of course, we could go and turn that off ourselves if we go up to, well, there's two ways of doing it. I can come up here and turn off all the edges, and we would see this in what they call, I even forget what they call it over here. They call it in shaded without the lines. And this one gives me shaded with all my edges. But if I wanted to go ahead and turn off the tangencies, we could go into our system options and select display. And up here you have hidden edges and part assembly tangent edge display. So I could remove those. I typically don't, but if you wanted to, you can remove those. But we typically don't because sometimes it's geometry that we can grab. Though, of course, you have to be very careful because if this is going to be a machine part, you can't tell a machinist to dimension something from a radius, from a tangency point within the part, because it's not really findable if you want to put it that way. All right, so let's go ahead and create a sketch onto this face. Because I can do this two different ways. I could sketch from the top plane as well, but I'm just going to, because I already have this 10 millimeter up here, so I don't have to put any dimensions on this. I'm just going to go from this point to the back corner, and we need to extrude it out a distance of 75. So I'll do an extruded boss, bring out that distance 75 millimeters. And now all we need to do is add our two fillets and our two slots. Well, the two fillets are called out here as having a radius of 10. So let's go ahead and put that in. We can put that in as a single feature. We go into right in our features toolbar. We'll select the fillet tool, items to fillet, and the radius. The radius is already by default set to 10. So my items to fillet are this edge, and rotate a little bit, and this edge. Of course, when I'm rotating, I'm just holding the middle mouse key down, and you can do that, and you can zoom back and forth. You can do that all in the middle of an operation. And then once I'm happy that I have everything good, I'll just go OK. And now with these two slots, I can again put this in as a single feature using a single sketch. So I'm going to go Sketch. I'll sketch onto this plane. And I'm just going to grab and use the slot tool right now. It doesn't really matter, but I'm going to use not a center point slot because they don't give me the center points here. I want to use the straight slot. So I'll just drop a point here, make sure I get the horizontal, and give myself some sort of diameter or radius, and I'll do the same thing here, making sure I get my vertical constraint. All right, so the distance for this one is 25, so let's jump into the smart dimension. And what I mean the distance between these two center points, which is given by this line. So I'll just select that and come over and put that as a 25. The radius is going to be a radius of 5. And we have two dimensions. The center line distance to here is going to be 25, so I'll select this center line and the edge and put that in as 25. I didn't type it right, so let me double check that again. I'll double click it this time to get it active. Oh, it did take it as 25. There you go. And then the distance from this point, I can select from this point or from the circle. All right, I'll just do that just to show you. And we get that as 20, and notice that the dimension is to the center of the circle. So that's fully dimensioned as well. So now we need to get the distance between these 2 points, which is this line, and that's given by this 20 millimeter dimension. So I'm still in my Smart Dimension tool, so I'll make that 20. My radius is double what it was the other one, so it is the radius of 10. And my 2 distances are this from the center line to this front edge. The dimension is 30. And we have a dimension again from this side here, which goes from this edge or this, and this time I'll just choose the center point just to show you have options of doing it both ways. And this is 30. So now my sketch is fully dimensioned, and we see that again down here in the bottom as being fully defined. And I'm going to go ahead and go Features, Extruded Cut, and we'll do, instead of doing blind, we'll capture our design intent by going through all. All right, so let's go ahead and throw this into an isometric view. Up here, now by the way, there are different views. There's diametric and trimetric, which are just different orientations. But if we're trying to recreate something that's been drawn in an isometric view, we typically would want to view it in an isometric view. Now you notice it looks a little bit different over here. So maybe we've made a mistake. And let's pull this over. And, you know, you can see what I'm saying here. I think this should be taller over here. And I come over, and this is sometimes the problem with doing with isometric drawings. I automatically assume that this 55 was from the base, but it turns out, if I actually, let me grab my little drawing tool, that this dimension is like going from this point here. So if I drag a line down and then connect this line over, you'd see that the distance, this 55, is actually from this upper surface. So I need to add 10 millimeters to that. So that's why it's good to double check your drawing. So let me go back to my original sketch. Now I can do this 2 ways, right? Oh, I have a bunch of ways of doing it, right? I can right click on the Boss Extrude and edit the sketch from there. I can open up the Boss Extrude and right click and edit the sketch from there. Or I can select the sketch and it brings up all my dimensions, or I can select the Boss Extrude and it brings up all the dimensions. Lots of different ways of doing it, and all of these will allow you to access that dimension. So I'll select Boss Extrude. There's my 55 dimension that I need to change to 65. So I'll double click on it, change it to 65, and hit Enter. Now, when you do it this way, there's nothing in here to actually say to rebuild the part. So you'll see your little stoplights over here that are indicating that your part needs to be rebuilt. So you can either click up here or hit Control B. So we'll go ahead and do that. And now when we put this in isometric view, and now we compare it to our drawing, well, they look a heck of a lot more similar. So that's the actual or the proper way we should have modeled this. That would be a real easy mistake to make. So that's why we go back and check things. All right, so let's go back in here. Let's evaluate our part. We'll go to our mass properties, and we have a mass of 199.68 grams, but since we haven't set a material, we typically wouldn't look at that, but we'll look at our volume and our surface area. Again, sometimes putting something in cubic millimeters is a pain in the neck, so we can go up here under Options, and we can use some custom settings where maybe we want to set, instead of doing millimeters, we could do it in cubic centimeters. And if we do that, well, now our surface area is 415 square centimeters, but we're still in cubic millimeters. So we go back up here, and the part unit volume, and we can again do it in cubic centimeters. And now we're not dealing with it in cubic millimeters, which sometimes gets a crazy large number. You could also do it in cubic meters as well, which would be a standard way of looking at it. Now, if we want to actually put a material on this so we can get the mass, we can just come over here to Material and right-click. Well, you have 2 options. Well, it won't let you do anything until you close the Mass Properties window down. So I'm going to right click on material. Now there's a couple materials that you can just pick on right away. Like I can just go ahead and say I want my part to be made of copper. Or we can go in here and select edit material, and you have a bunch of preset materials in here. Steels, irons, aluminum alloys, copper alloys, and titanium. We have plastics here, so we could make this like an ABS plastic. And I can say I'll apply it. And then I have to close my window, so it shows up as a generic white. And now I can go back and take the mass. So if I was going to print this using a 3D printer and print it in ABS plastic, assumedly a solid print, we would end up with our mass properties, and this would now have a mass of 203.67 grams. All right, so hopefully you've enjoyed and learned something with this part, and we'll see you again tomorrow as part of the Part a Day project.